Greetings everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to learn how to paint an underwater scene. We're going to have some coral reef, we're going to have some underwater colorful plants and all the details on the bottom here, and then probably some fishes up here in a dark water with from the outside sun, it's going to be lighter on top here. So we'll see what happens and we're going to just have fun. There is no right or wrong how to get the little details of your plants here. You can create your own interesting plants because there's so many variety of colorful plants underwater. So I'm excited about this and I hope you'll enjoy the process and learn something new from this. All right, let's go over the materials needed for today. I'm going to be painting on a 14 by 18 studio canvas. It already has a layer of, it's already primed and has a layer of gesso on it. It's dry and ready to go. The only thing I did to it, as I always do, is add a glaze of water with my brush real quick all over the painting, just a small layer. And then once it dries, what it does is it stretches out the canvas and makes it tighter. So it's ready to be painted on. You may use any size canvas you have available. If you're painting bigger, make sure to remember to add a little more paint, and then obviously if it's smaller, add a little less paint when we mix our colors, okay? For brushes, we're gonna use the 2M1 blending brushes. One I like to dab in the water and lay out my colors once I have it mixed, quickly lay it out, and then the second one dry to blend everything in quickly. All right, so we need 2 of these, and we might use the M2 blending brush, we'll see. As we go on, we might use a size smaller. We're gonna need my 4-piece brush set. I'll show you what's inside. We got the number 8 and then number 4. They're like filbert style brushes, synthetic. So I always have them damp, always have a little water in my brushes so it runs smoothly on the canvas. But basically this is the same style, just the size smaller. So this is number 8 and number 4. I use these a lot on all my paintings. So we're going to be using these 2, and then also a 1/2 inch flat brush, okay, and then a 0 detail brush for the details. We're gonna use an artist sponge, okay, to create some effects on our underwater plants. For paint, we're gonna use my 24 set of acrylics. I'll show you which colors we're gonna use from this set. Medium yellow, orange, raw sienna, sap green, viridian, phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, and crimson red. And from my 5 set of acrylics, I'm going to be using titanium white and carbon black. If you don't have exactly the materials I have, that's okay. Use what you have available, even if the color is a little off. For example, if let's say you're crimson red and you have naphtha red or medium red, right? Like that's okay. Use that. Whatever you have available. It doesn't have to look exactly like mine. I'm just, because there's no really right way of painting your, underwater colorful plants, right? Let's say mine's a shade a little bit different because of its crimson color, right? But yours could be a little less, different kind of red, right? It's totally okay. So there's no right or wrong. Use what you have available, and we're just gonna learn some techniques and add some color to this painting and just have fun with this together, okay? I'm gonna use paper palette to mix my paint. Need a palette knife, jar of water, some paper towels to clean your palette knife and dab some of your brushes onto to take away some water. I'll show you and be explaining as we go on. It's nice to have that next to you, the paper towels. And then also if you have a hair dryer or blow dryer, use that to dry out your first coats so that you basically, I like to work when my background blend is dry, because otherwise you're going to smear and take away the blend and kind of, make it messy. So it needs to be dry before adding more layers. So if you are, you know, working, you have time to work and you want to quickly go on to the next section, that's why I use the hair blow dryer to quickly dry everything, and then I can work on the next section. But if you don't mind, if you have 30 minutes to work on a first section and then you want to take a break, then you can let it naturally dry, which it should dry in 20-30 minutes, and then you can, you know, pick back up. But I like to work in sections, as I always say. I like to work from the furthest distance, which in this case we're painting underwater. It's going to be the water in the background. Okay, that's going to be the furthest distance. We're going to add the layer of, and this time we're going to go from dark color blues to lighter color blues, because remember, the light is coming from the top into the water, right? So it's going to be brighter on top here, and then it's going to be faded to darker because it's going deeper into the ocean, right? So from dark to light blue, we're going to add our first layers here, and then we're going to start to add whatever's next on top of that, which is some of the faraway plants and coral or whatever, you know, maybe rocks. And then we're going to then add a sketch of our details of our plants and all the colorful details, rocks here, and then we're going to define everything and detail everything. So it's all these are sections. I mix enough paint, and as you noticed, only when I'm working on a small portion, because acrylics tend to dry fast. So I don't mix, let's say I don't mix the sky and then my, you know, my plant colors, right? Because then the plant colors are going to dry out by the time I get to that section, right? So that's why I just mix enough on certain parts that I'm working on. That's how I like to work with acrylics. It worked the best for me that way, and I hope it works for you as well. All the materials I'm using are available at colorbyfelix.com if you're interested. That being said, let's go straight to mixing our first shades of colors, which is the faraway water, ocean. Okay, so I got my palette paper here, and we're always going to start with titanium white, and we're going to create 3 shades. This is going to be just a blue transition from lightest to darkest. We're going to create 3 for now. So titanium white, and we're going to add and we're going to cover probably around like half of the canvas, so keep that in mind. So I'm going to add about a thumb and a half amount right here, okay, of paint, and then a little less each time, so maybe a thumb amount here, okay, and then a little less right here. All right, half a thumb of white. Now we're always going to close the lid so that the paint will stay fresh, okay? And let's pick up Viridian. We're going to add a little bit of this color. It has a little green. You know how ocean is. It has a little bit of that green tint to it. So I'm going to add just a little bit on this one. Small touch. And then we're going to pick up phthalo blue. And we're going to add phthalo blue right here. A little more than the Viridian. Okay, we added more phthalo blue here. And then a little bit more on this one. All right. Like almost a thumb amount. And then a little more on that one. Like a thumb amount on that one. Okay. And so we're going to close the lid. And then we're going to add ultramarine blue. Okay. Ultramarine blue to this one. Let's add ultramarine blue about, I would say, almost a thumb amount. Okay, but we added more phthalo blue on that one. And then finally we're going to add carbon black. Carbon black we're going to add just on this one for now, a very small amount. Okay, very small amount right there. And then now we're going to mix all these colors from lightest to darkest and see what we get. And if I need to add more, I will add more, but I think this should do it. Okay, see that Viridian made it look a little more on the greener side. That's kind of what we want as our lightest shade. It's still blue, but it has a little bit hint of that color because of the light hitting the blue, you know, the sun, all the yellows and bright colors. It's hitting that blue, and so it has a little hint of green in it. Okay, warm colors. We want a little bit of a warm color in our on our brightest blue from the sun. Okay, so mix everything like this, and then once you're done, bunch it up like this. All right, and then go to the next color. It should be a smooth transition from lightest to darkest. Okay, that's good right there. You could see the transition is not too intense. Now if it is, then you might need a little more white or add a little more blue if it's not. Let's say if it's too similar, right? We want the transition to be, you know, not as intense. We want it to be more of a smoother transition, but not too close. If they were too close, I would add more blue here. Okay, so once I have that mixed nicely, I'm going to bunch it up, and I'm going to mix my final color. Okay, mix it nice, and this one will be our darkest. So I'm looking at this, and I actually want to make it even darker. Okay, so this color is, you know, I feel like I can make it a little more darker. I want my water to really stand out. So let's add more ultramarine blue. Okay, more ultramarine blue. And make it on the brighter side. Like more vibrant. I want the color to be more vibrant. Okay, so it's pretty dark blue. Okay, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, should I add more? And I think I am, because the color, it's dark, but you know what I'm gonna do actually? Let's leave this color as it is, okay? Let's leave it as it is, but let's take half of it like this, okay? Move it to the side. That's what I do sometimes. Move it to the side so we won't keep adding too much on this one. Okay, we'll use this color, but you know, it'll be another transition to even a darker color. So then now let's add phthalo blue. Okay, more phthalo blue. And ultramarine blue. Okay, and then black. Let's make it even darker. A small amount of black, like this. We want it to be a dark, so that it can give nice, you know, give nice depth to our water. There you go. That's much better. You could see the transition from light to dark, right? There you go. All right, so something like this, okay? It doesn't have to look exactly like mine, but if you have something like this, you'll be good to go. Okay, so I'm gonna have my water jar next to my canvas, so it'll be easy access because I'm gonna be dabbing my brush, blending brush in the water, picking up more paint and laying it down, right? And what I did was also, I cleaned my palette knife. I always do once I'm done mixing colors. Basically, I dab it in the water like this and just use a paper towel to clean it out real quick, okay? All right, here's my canvas. Remember, we're gonna cover probably half the canvas, so from here, like this, okay? Right there, something like this. My water jar right here, water, and then an M1, one of the M1 blending brushes. I'm gonna dab it all the way in the water, okay? And then squeeze part of it out, okay? You don't want a lot of water inside, but there is still water in there, but it's not a lot. Basically, practice. Once you catch the technique of blending, it becomes super fast and easy, but it's all about practicing, right? And so if your water's dripping too much, like when you lay down the colors with paint, then that means you have too much water. So I'd encourage you to pick up more paint and no more water, or squeeze part of the water out, okay? And then pick up more paint and then try to blend it and equal everything out, you know, blend it all in with the paint so that it won't drip. If you see some bubbles, that's okay, but too much, you know, where you start to see through the canvas, that means you have too much water. So practice the amount of ratio of water on your brush, and once you have that technique down, it'll just be super easy. Okay, so my brush, there's some water in there, but it's not dripping, you see. Okay, so we're gonna pick up a little bit of, since we're going from light to dark the opposite way, we're gonna still start with the lightest color. I'm gonna pick up my paint here from the first color, make sure I have a nice amount of paint like this. Okay, and this is a quick process, so I'm gonna quickly lay everything out and then use my blending brush, dry another one to blend and everything in. Okay, so starting from the top, okay, I'm gonna have my water next to me, so whenever I say I'm dabbing my brush in the water, I'm just literally going just the tip in the water like this, in the water, and then picking up more paint if I need to. So I'll be explaining that and showing you. So some paint, and let's start with somewhere right here in the middle. Let's just go right here, like this. I'm gonna dab my brush lightly in the water, not too much. Pick up more of this color, and I'm gonna call it good right there. Okay, next, I don't need water right now because I feel I have enough water. I'm gonna add that right on around this one. Okay, like this. Okay, next, I still have enough water, so I'm not going to. Right there. Okay, pick up more of this color. And we're gonna blend that in. Pick up this lighter color again. Let's blend it in here a little bit, right there. Okay, so dab my brush in the water lightly. And then let's use this color, lighter color again, right here in the corner. And then dab my brush in the water lightly. Pick up this color, darker color. Okay, something like this. Lightly dab my brush in the water. Let's go back to this color again, and it's okay if you're mixing it all in randomly. On top right here. Let's go with this one. This area is going to be dark because we're going to add some details here in a bit. So now I'm going to use the darkest color. I'm going to dab my brush and use this darkest color we have mixed right on the bottom, all over the place, all over this area. And make sure you lightly, that's why I swirl, because it fills in all the little holes in your canvas, so then it becomes solid color. So make sure you blend it all in and have enough. See, I'm not adding any more water because I feel like I have plenty of water right now. So, and then for the darker part, I might add another layer glaze. After this dries, I might add another layer, quick layer of this darker color, because I don't want my canvas to be showing through. Okay, something like this. I'm going to put my brush down in the water jar so that my brush won't dry out. I'm going to pick up my dry M1 blending brush right here, and I'm going to start from the top where the lightest area is, and lightly, gently press, okay, gently press and lightly blend everything in. And this part does not have to be perfect because this is underwater, so it's gonna, we just want to take away the rough edges of certain areas right here. Okay, so quickly blend it all in. This area we're gonna add more detail to it, but this is the base layer of our water. So I'm barely pressing, barely pressing. It's going to create a little bit of its own shapes, as you could see. I'm just gonna gently, that's why I'm saying for the dark color, because we added more color from our tube, it's gonna be more transparent to our canvas. White makes it thicker. When I'm adding more white to my paint, it makes it more, the paint thicker, so then it covers the canvas nicely. But here, for the darker area, you might have to go over it with a dark area again, this, or do the same kind of technique of blending again to create a solid shade of dark. Or another option is to add the base, first add your base color real quick with kind of like the burnt umber, but with the blues, and then go over with the blend doing this technique. So you could see I'm barely pressing and swirling my brush and kind of making this painting more smoother, right? So now that I have my first blend right here, I'm going to wash my blending brushes so they won't sit in the water too long. If you took care of your blending brushes, they will last you a long time. So what I do to wash them is use warm water, not hot water, warm water and a little bit of dish soap or brush soap, and then you just put it on your palm and swirl it like this over running warm water. And then once you're done, squeeze part of it out, water out, and then swirl it on a paper towel to fluff it back up. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it'll be ready for the next use. All right, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna wash my brushes, let this dry, and then we'll continue. All right, so my canvas is dry. I got a new water jar right here, and I'm going to continue adding details to the faraway water and little, you know, maybe there's rocks and bushes coming out from the side. So I'm gonna mix some more color. I did go over, just letting you know, I did go over once the first coat was dry. I had some paint left, right, of these colors. And I did go over doing the same technique, adding it from light to dark real quick, just so that I won't waste paint, and then so that I can get a solid color and that canvas texture won't show through. Sometimes doing it twice, the same thing, will make your blend smoother and solid, okay? So that's what I did, just because I made extra paint here and I wanted it to be a nice smooth blend, right? But we're gonna add on top of certain areas. So this is what I have, okay? So I added a small thumb amount, less than thumb amount of white here, and then a little bit less here, like half a thumb, maybe less right here. And then I added phthalo blue, a thumb amount there, and then phthalo, a lot more here, a little more phthalo blue here, and ultramarine blue on top. And then I added carbon black, ultramarine blue, and phthalo blue here. This will be the darkest color. It'll be similar to this color that we have mixed, maybe a little even darker, okay? So let's just mix these colors and I'll show you what I get. Okay, so this is what I have. You could see the blue is similar shade to this second shade that we mixed, and this one to this one, and then this one's a little darker than this one. They're a little bit darker than these three shades here, but something like this, okay? We're gonna add some, you know, far away, I mean closer. So we're gonna let this area be light in the middle here, this section. And then we're gonna add details right here. Maybe there's a huge rock here or some shadow of reef and stuff like that on this side, right? Maybe there's a cave, maybe this is far away and there's a little cave going in inside here, you know, so that it'll look interesting. And then we're gonna add some, you know, reef along here with a dark blue that we have mixed, okay? So first things first, my water jar right next to me, and then my number 8 brush, okay? I'm gonna dab it all the way in the water, let it soak there. Sometimes what I do is I let the brushes soak for like 2 minutes in the water so that you will get a nice soft, or you know, after a couple minutes it'll start to get soft, right? Because that's what we want. And then I'm gonna dab all the way in the water and then dab it on the paper towel like this, okay, on both sides. So there is still some water, but it's not like a lot of water. It's gonna be damp, right? And so with a damp brush, we're gonna be working with these colors, starting with this one And then we're probably going to be playing with these dark colors, mixing them together and stuff like that, because we're going to create, we want a light shade here, lighter blue shade going into, it's going to be darker than this background blue, because we want to create that like shadow, right? And then we're going to, you know, as we go down, it's going to be darker. So let's go ahead and start with this color and see what it gives us first, and then from there we'll be playing with these 3 colors and I'll show you, okay? All right, so like I said, this middle area, I want it to be bright going down, so I'm gonna start adding it right in here. And that's a nice blue right there. And so I'm gonna create like little details. Maybe these are little plants coming from this rock. Okay, and then maybe it goes in a little bit like this, and then comes down. Some kind of swirl and blend it in here with the background that we have already mixed with, right? And I swirl, and I use the corner of my brush to kind of, and my brush, remember, it's damp, so it blends in with the background smoothly. And then I just kind of make it look okay, something like this. Okay. And as we go down, I'm going to add a little more of this light blue, this first color we have mixed right in the corner, right here. Kind of let it go down and fade out. Okay, something like this. Trying to make a smooth transition. All right, so we got that shape. And now I'm going to dab my brush in the water and tap it on the paper towel. I don't need to clean my brush, just dab it in the water and then tap it. Let's use the next darker color. Right where we left off, right here, we want to make a transition, smooth transition. Okay, going down, and then maybe there's some plants also kind of coming out like this. And then I use the corner of my brush to kind of swirl and blend it in with the background colors we have mixed. Okay, I'm going to dab my brush lightly in the water and then tap it on the paper towel so I won't have too much water. I'm going to continue with this color we have mixed and add a little bit of transition, little shadows and things in the rocks that you kind of see, and lightly swirl and blend, make it look a little, you know, misty. Maybe this goes up a little bit like that. All these little details that you see underwater, far, far away. You don't want it to be too sharp. So that's why we're using this transition from light, you know, light blue to the dark blue, because it goes deeper, right, into the water. So I'm going to blend that and try to fade it out like this. Maybe there's a little bit of shadow in here. Little details. Okay, randomly. There's no correct way of doing this. Remember, I'm doing this randomly just to give variety of things underwater, that there's, you know, details in the rocks and shadows and things like that. So there's, as long as it looks smooth, you know, a smooth transition, faded transition, you're good to go, okay? You're good. So right there, and then as we go down, I'm going to add a little more of this blue color right in here. I want this to be a little more blue in here. Maybe add a little, mix it with this lighter blue. Maybe there's some lighter hints of blue coming from the light hitting this rock, this cave. Okay, randomly add it. And then add a little bit of this dark blue again right in here. We want this color to still be blue. And then we're going to fade out. Dab my brush in the water, and we're just going to go down and fade it out. Okay, so this area right here, then now we're going to use this color, okay, this darkest color we have mixed. With our damp brush, we're going to continue adding where we left off, okay? And I'm swirling and pressing a little bit to create a smooth transition. So I dab my brush in water, maybe use part of this color as well, mix it with these two to create a transition right in here. Okay. Okay, use a little bit of this color and this darkest color, and we're gonna just fade it out. And we're gonna create a fade, and it's just gonna go down. Use the dark color. Let's add a little bit of shadows in our rock here. Dab my brush in the water. Use this darkest color. And we're just gonna create transitions. Play with this middle color as well so that it will be smoother transition from the dark. A little bit of, you know, darker tones here. A little bit of the darker tone right in here. I want to make this pretty dark in here. Okay, a little more of that darker tone right in here. This is where we want it to be super dark. That'll make our water stand out even more and gives it more depth. And then randomly go all the way down with that dark blue, create a nice dark deep blue all the way down. All the way down. Randomly swirl your brush and just cover it all. You'll see with this brush, you'll see some of little brush strokes and things like that, right? It's not as smooth as the blend that we created, right? But we want that because this rock has some things growing on it, some shadows, some little leaves coming out, you know, and it creates it. It gives you a natural like effect, you know, just by using this number 8 brush. And then dab my brush in water, use a little bit of this blue and black, kind of mix it in here. We'll create a smooth transition. Okay, so something like this. And maybe add a little bit of darker. I'm going to dab my brush in water, tap it on the paper towel, use this color, and dim this a little bit. I added too much of the dark here, and that's okay. We have plenty of these colors to play with and make it as detailed as we want. Okay. Use a little bit of the blue. Take away the sharpness. All right, that already looks much better. And dab my brush in water. I'm going to use this middle blue, and I want to create a little shadow in here, going up. Okay, use a little bit of that light blue to kind of take away the sharpness on some of these edges. And that will be good enough. There you go. I'm going to add a little bit of details for fun, some shadows. That you can barely see. Okay, dab my brush in water, use this lightest blue. Kind of take the sharpness away from that dark area we just added, and just press a little bit and use the corner of your brush to kind of swirl and blend, make it look a little smoother, right? That's how I create smooth transitions after blending with these brushes. Okay, darken this a little bit. Okay, for the next part, we're gonna use the artist sponge. We're gonna dab this whole artist sponge into the water jar and squeeze it in the water jar under the water so that it could soak up all the water, and then we're just gonna squeeze all the water out of it. We're gonna squeeze all the water out of it so it could be nice and soft and damp, right? There's no water in here, but it's nice and ready to be used. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create some details and leaves kind of on this area. So I'm gonna use this blue first. Pick a side, it doesn't matter which side, and you could use by squeezing it, by making it more loose. You could use different kind of sizes by squeezing it, right? So it's totally up to you. Play with this, and I'm gonna start from here. I'm gonna add details from here and randomly you could pluck it out a little bit. Maybe some of them are. See how that creates a nice effect? And then obviously as you go down, we're gonna start to then use the darker color, okay? And connecting it, dabbing it, and then pulling it out like this. And gonna fade it out on top here. I don't want too much here. Okay, use the dark tone. Maybe some of it's coming, kind of showing through, so I'm not gonna cover a lot of it here. Use that darker color, and then obviously we're going to kind of go at an angle going down. And use this to cover everything, all the beautiful details here. Some of it's going to be showing through. You could see I'm not covering everything. You could see some spots are light. That's what we want. We want it variety. Okay. And we're just going to go down here, and right in here we're going to kind of go up a little bit. And it's going to be covered here. This is where the ground is on this side. Okay, so I'm going to continue covering this area. So a little more of this color, and we're going to fade it out here. It's all going to be blended in. And we're going to add more details here, so a lot of this is going to be covered. So I'm not worried too much about this section here. So something like this, okay? And now we're going to kind of sketch out. We're going to add fishes and things like that later, towards the end. So I'm not going to focus on that, working on that right now. But I'm going to sketch out the next section is sketching out your, plants and colorful, where your reef is and all this stuff, like all the plants, and kind of get a rough sketch, and then we're gonna step back and take a look and see what we can add to make it look more interesting. So before I continue adding anything to the background, that's what I'm gonna do here, okay? I'm gonna mix some color and show you what I get. Okay, first things first, I'm going to take this darkest color here, right? I'm gonna put it right here, and I'm just gonna take all these colors here, so that I won't let it go to waste. And I'm going to use that as my base layer for part of just to cover this section here, because it's going to be dark. I'm actually going to add some black to this real quick, and we're going to just create a dark base right there. Just added a black to it. And then we're just going to blend all that in, and it doesn't really matter which color it gives you, as long as it's dark, okay? As long as it's dark and it's leaning towards more of blue, you're good to go. So it's like a dark gray bluish color, and that's fine. Okay, so something like this, we just want a nice base layer. So I'm going to use to quickly cover this, I'm going to use my M2 blending brush, dab it in the water, all the way, squeeze part of the water out so it can run smooth. And I'm just going to use this color to cover all this area right in here. Okay. Cover that area. Kind of swirl, and we don't need to really, you can dab a little bit into the water, but you don't really need to do that because we're not really blending it, you know, we're just covering it with this shade. So randomly I'm gonna add it in here as the base. So I'm gonna lightly dab it in the water so it can run smooth. Now a lot of this is going to be, we just want to cover the canvas, right? So that's why I'm doing this. Cover it all with this color. Okay, just like this. And once you have it covered, we're going to let this dry. You can use your hair dryer to quickly dry everything out. All right, now that everything is dry, we can go ahead and start to get our sketch of our plants and things like that. And so I'm going to start with just 2 colors right now, and we'll mix more as we go. But this is what I have. I have a thumb amount of white and then a little bit less white here. And then I added Viridian. You could see I added more Viridian and a small touch of phthalo blue. And then I added phthalo blue, a little more phthalo blue here. And so I'm going to mix these colors and show you what I get. All right, so this is what I got. I added a little more phthalo blue here because it was leaning towards green, too green, but we want to make sure it has more of that hint of blue in our colors. So that's what I did here. You could still see that it's green, but it has more, a little bit of that blue in there. And then just a light blue right there. And so with these colors, first I'm going to use my number 8 brush, and I'm going to quickly randomly sketch out my, just the placements of some of the, with this color that we have mixed. And my number 8 brush, I'm going to create like a little bit of details right in here, randomly. Maybe these are bushes that are far away, little plants. So I'm going to quickly dab it. That's how I create my, you know, texture and details, is making it look like, okay. And then here, as we go in here, I'm going to lightly transition. Well, let's continue here. I want to add all my lights and darks. First lights, obviously. All my shapes of my plants and rocks and things like that in the water here. Okay, and then here we can make it more solid here. And then lightly use your corner and fade it out. Right? You see how I'm kind of skipping some areas because we want to keep that base giving us a little bit of shadows and things like that. So I'm going to continue adding a few details here lightly and fading it out. And then here as we go down, there's going to be a bright area in here and then in here as well. And we're going to add different colors in here as well. So I'm not going to spend too much time with this color because we're going to add different shades. And then as we go up here, I'm going to use a little bit of this blue. If you have that blue, use whatever color you have left. And I'm going to create a little transition from this bright green to this bluish tone. You can kind of pull the paint as well, pull it down to create little interesting effects. Skip some areas and create a variety of, and then we'll fade it out here. Okay, and add that blue a little bit in here. Maybe there's a little interesting highlight of in here. Okay, and then a little bit of blue, darker blue maybe, if you have that darker blue left, add a little bit of that in this corner. And this is just randomly, I'm adding a little bit of variety of darker blue right in here. Mix a little bit of that blue into with these green right in here. Maybe it's transition into this green, you know. Okay, randomly like that. Okay, and this is a quick sketch. Like I said, we're gonna come back and work on it some more, but I'm gonna put my brush down. And what I'm going to try to do, this is something I haven't done or tested before, but bear with me. I'm going to actually, because I kind of like the effect that what happened here. I thought that was pretty cool. I was not planning on it, but that was an accident when I was pulling, using my artist sponge brush, squeezing it kind of, and lightly pressing and pulling it and creating this beautiful effect around here, right? So I want to create one of these out of my light blue that we have mixed this color. I'm going to create one of the, you know, plants right in here, bright ones with this, but I don't want to overdo it, so I'm going to lightly test certain areas first, okay? So I'm going to work on adding it right here somewhere in the middle, okay? All right, so I cleaned my brush or my artist sponge, squeezed it out, and it's damp. I'm going to choose a corner, right? I'm going to use this light blue color, take a little bit of this paint, okay, make sure you don't have too much, but just a little bit like this on the corner, and then you can squeeze and control the size of it, you know. And so randomly I'm going to start adding for my first plant, and I'm gonna just test it out first. Okay, I like it. See, that's pretty cool. How I'm pulling it, I'm barely pressing, I'm pulling it. And make sure it goes different directions. You want to have variety. Okay, so I like that. So let's continue with that. So now I'm going to add a little bit here, and you want to see some of the background showing too. We don't want to overdo it. So I'm going to have some little areas as well. And then I'm pulling it in every different direction because I want it to give me, and I don't want to cover too much. You see, you still want to see that the background blues that we have added, right? And I don't want to overdo it, so I'm going to first add the areas I want to be covered, and then I can go back and look at it and see if I want to add more. For example, here I might add one right in here. Right? And make this a little bigger. Okay, continue with that. And I'm going to make this area a little bigger here. I'm dabbing and pulling the paint. Lightly, barely pressing. Okay, and as I go down, it's gonna be faded. Okay, something like this. Okay, as you could see, it may look a little rough, but it'll do. It will do. Because this is sketch first, and then we're gonna go over and make it look more interesting. This is our first plant. Colorful plant. Okay, I'm going to set this down for now, and what I'm going to do now is mix another color to create the connection to these plants, right? And I'm going to make it look red. So I'm going to add a little bit of black. Okay, so I added a small touch of black, crimson, red, and orange. I'm going to take part of this blue that we have mixed. Okay. And first I'm going to mix these first with a little bit of black because I don't know how much black I want in this color. Okay, so it is pretty dark, so I want to brighten it. So I'm going to take a little more blue, mix it in here. Okay, that's good enough right there. So we have like a reddish orangey look. Okay, we want to add that. And then maybe you can mix it with black to create a darker shade right there. And we're going to use that for darker areas. Something like this. Okay, so something like this. We're going to always clean our palette knife with water and a paper towel. We are going to let's pick up our number 4 brush and clean it and dab it on the paper towel. Okay, or you could use your flat brush as well, or a detail brush to connect it. But I've used this number 4 brush so much that over time the brush it becomes finer and finer, you know, smaller, because this is an older brush, and so that it creates a nice small, you know, almost like a flat brush would, right? But this is, for example, this is like the new brush, and this is the older one that I had for a long time. See, it's the same type of brush, but over time when you use it, you're gonna get it shorter and shorter each time. But they both work really good in different times. They both work good, but just keep that in mind for future. Let's use this blue or this red, that orangey red we mixed, and we're going to add our connections, little connections and things like so. So this is going to be connecting here, and then maybe it comes out a little bit here, and then it goes up. Okay, it goes up in here. And then we're going to continue that and have it come up right in here. Okay, something like this. Rough sketch. Okay. And we're going to come back to this, you know, this section later, but now what I'm gonna do is spend a little bit of time with my detail brush, going back to this light blue color with my detail brush and water. I dab my brush in the water and then swirl it here so it could be a little wet, you know, and it's easier to create little details. So I'm going to connect some of these randomly like this, okay? And make it look more. So every time I move my brush, I pretty much dab it in the water and use this color. So this is going to be a repetitive thing, and start from a corner and create like little details to your connect, you know, connect these little plants randomly like this. All right, so I'm going to spend some time working and going over. This is a repetitive thing, so be patient, turn on music maybe, and have fun with this section. Okay, and you see I'm just playing with movement, letting all these go different directions. Totally up to you how much you want to add and how big you want them to be. Okay, so just keep that in mind with this light blue. Go different directions so it won't look like it's all, you know, perfect. So make it look more interesting. Okay, so again, I'm going to spend time doing this, connecting him, all these little details, and then making them look a little bit more interesting, this plant, okay? All right, so once you're done adding all the little details, like I said, you can create some small ones, give some variety, right? But it's a repetitive thing, and that's what we did here. We're gonna do that to a couple of these other colorful ones here. But first, I wanna continue adding details to this. And so with a detail brush, I'm going to use, this darker red that we have mixed with a little bit of water. And this, basically same technique, but I wanna create these little branches connecting randomly. So I'm going to spend some time randomly adding branches. Okay, so just barely pressing. Okay, that'll create a nice, you know, make it look even more detailed and pretty. Okay, so like all over the place here. Okay, and then in here, going in. With water and a little bit of that dark red that we've mixed. I'm just kind of barely pressing the canvas and connecting where I think it will look good. So kind of barely pressing and making it wavy. Okay, dab my brush in the water. Some areas could be a little darker. wobbly here. Same thing here, connecting to this bottom area here. Going down, you know, give some variety so that it won't look all the same. Okay, I'm going to do that for a little bit of time. Spend some time adding my little details, connecting them. Right here. Right? Makes it more interesting. You know, when you start to add more and more details, you start to see, you know, the colors and start to see the shapes and all the beautiful details in these plants. That's what we want to do. Some of them could be a little darker. You could see I added a little bit darker in the middle. Right? Same thing here. I'm going to darken some of this area. In here. And then lightly add a little bit in here. Dab my brush in the water, use more of that color, and we're going to go up and continue adding some in here. Barely pressing. And I'm using my finger to sometimes wipe it off if it's too intense. Quickly wipe it off. And then continue here. Add some details and then connections in here. Okay, a little bit more in here. Okay, and then finally I added black, a little bit of black and crimson red. I'm going to mix these, a little bit of black, not too much. I want more of the red. So a little bit of black. So it could be a little bit darker. Cherry color. Okay, and then I also added phthalo blue straight out of the tube, and we're going to add a glaze to finalize this piece. Okay, so a cherry color, darker color, with a detail brush. We're going to use this color to add a little bit of a darker outline to our plant here. Okay, just a little bit of a darker outline to make it stand out even more, right? We want this plant to stand out even more. Okay, so as you can see how a little bit of that darker color makes it more, you know, interesting. Okay, I'm not gonna add it everywhere, just on a few of these areas here where I want it to stand out a little more. Okay, dab my brush in water, use that cherry color again. Let's add a little bit in here. And I'm not adding it everywhere, I'm just adding mainly right here in the middle. Okay, to make it stand out. Okay, just a little bit right here. Some details right in here. And then a few more. I want to make this a little darker right here, so I'm going to see what I did there. It makes it more like, because it's more on the bottom, we're going to make it more detailed and sharper. So with this color, I'm going to continue adding a little bit of my sharper. Shadows. Dab my brush in the water and pick up more of that color and continue. Totally up to you how much you want to add, okay? So a little more in here. There you go. And finally, with our number 8 brush, we're going to use that phthalo blue and a little bit of water. Okay, our brush is damp. We don't want a lot of it. And transparently, we're going to add a glaze on some of these. Okay, with that blue. Oops, a little too much. That's okay. Just wipe it with your... So I'm going to dab my brush in the water, tap it on the paper towel so it won't be too much. Okay, we just want a glaze in the middle, mainly in the middle of these. Okay, so that the out ones could be a little lighter. Connecting them on some of these. Some of them are going to be behind. So a little more blue right in here, for example. These are maybe further back. And then of course in here, a little more blue around. It's okay if you go over some of the red that we added, like this. Okay, so we don't want too much, but just a little bit of that blue. And then in here, and a little bit of blue in the middle. A little bit of blue right here because it's going down and it's going to get a little darker. So a little more of that blue around in this area. Make it a little darker, so use a little more blue. Make sure your brush is damp. And just go over everything here, a little bit here. Okay. So a little more blue, and then right here, make this faded. Faded. There you go. We want, basically, we want more of the top area to be brighter. Okay. That's good. All right, we can, you know, go back and detail, add more of the lighter. So in here, like the top area, because of the light, we want these especially around here to be lighter, right? So what you could do is, and I'm going to do this, but it's totally up to you. You don't need to, but I'm going to. So I'm gonna use this blue, but I'm gonna make it a little bit lighter. Okay, so I'm gonna mix white and a little bit of phthalo blue, but I'm gonna make a lighter shade than this, basically, you know, and I'll show you, but I'm gonna go over on the top a little bit and make it really stand out, because I want to create, I don't want it to look kind of flat. Right now it's kind of looking a little bit flat, so I'm going to make it look more 3D by adding, because of our light coming from the sky, I want to create a little bit of that glow on some of these plants. All right. Okay, so as you could see, it's a lighter blue color, right? So this, with this lighter blue color and a detail brush, I'm gonna go over with water and this color on some of these upper plants. I want to make them look more brighter, and then fade it. Don't go all the way. Fade it into that darker shade. Okay, so I'm gonna spend some time doing that, and I'll show you what I get. And then fade it in. Okay, that creates a nice glow to these plants. Makes it look more 3D. All right, so we got our first detailed plant here, right? So you can, as you could see, I added more white around, mainly around here where the light is hitting these. Okay, just a little bit of detail on some of them. And then you could see it's still a little bit more on the blue side, darker, because as it goes down, the shadows, you create the shadows. That way you're seeing depth, and little details like that matter, because it really then starts to make your painting look more 3D. Okay, so you could see that darker blue going into the lighter details, right? And you can spend as much time as you want on this. This is a fun, repetitive thing, you know, and you can make it as fun and as big as you want. Okay, but we're going to continue, and to the next section we're going to add we're going to continue adding details here, so don't worry about this section. We just kind of added an idea here, rough idea here as the base, but we're gonna create another plant right here somewhere. Okay, and then next we're gonna add some in here as well. All right, so I'm gonna mix some shades for this side right here. Okay, so this is what I've mixed: a thumb amount of white and a little bit of orange, and then less white, like a half amount of white as this one, and then more orange and a touch of crimson red. I'm going to mix these and show you what I get. Okay, so this is what I got: a light orangey color and then a little bit of a darker shade, right, of orange. So something like this. It doesn't have to be exactly like my shade here, but something like this will do. Okay, so we're going to use our detail brush, and always dabbing our brush in the water like this. Okay, picking up a little bit of water in my brush, and then I'm gonna swirl right here with my paint. Okay, swirl with water and paint. We want to make it a little bit not too thick but not too wet, but just a good balance. And you'll know this by trying, you know, trial and error. Like, you have to find the amount of, you know, water. Basically you want it to if it's too thick, it's gonna like skip, and you're not gonna get that fine, clean line, right? So we want it to run smoothly, but we don't want it to be dripping and too transparent. Okay, so just practice, you know, water, dab it in the water, swirl, pick up paint, and that's really a repetitive thing, back and forth. And so I'm going to do the same kind of idea like we did to this plant, right? But we're going to make it a little different design just to give a variety and interesting, you know, look to our plants and stuff. So here I'm going to draw it like somewhere around here, kind of going like this, covering part of this. Okay, something like this, all right, right here. So with my water and a little bit of this light orange paint, I'm going to just sketch everything out with this color. It's a repetitive thing, like I said, and I'm barely going to press the canvas. And first I'm going to draw out the main kind of like lines of our plant here. Okay, so for example, we're going to just have the first one kind of go something like this. You see how it runs smooth on the canvas because it has a little bit of water. Now if, let's say, if I just use thick paint and I added thick paint here, it's gonna create some, see, it kind of skips, it doesn't cover the texture of the canvas, it doesn't go in the holes nicely because it doesn't have that nice, you know, the water makes it look more smooth. So that's why I dab my brush in water, to make it run smooth, all right? So then you can correct it a little bit and see how nice that works with water. I'm barely pressing onto the canvas and it's working really nice. So I'm gonna attach this, make this thicker. This will be a little bit of the main, kind of our main line to our plant. So I'm just gonna, not too thick, but something like this, okay? So I'm gonna dab my brush in water and then I'm gonna continue kind of making it a little, going over, making it a little thicker. And then I'm going to add a few more. Like I said, it's going to kind of go over. I'm going to pick up more paint with water. Okay, it's going to go over part of this plant that we painted, but that's okay. So then here, I'm going to kind of go like this, and okay, and it doesn't really matter which direction you want it to go. It's totally up to you, but kind of play with it, give variety of different, you know, directions. And so here I'm going to add a little bit of connecting right in here. And then one that is going to go okay, dab my brush in water, use more of that orange, make it a little thicker, and we'll go over this again with a darker color. But for now, just to get that quick sketch, you know, and the outline of our plant, we want to make sure we so dabbing my brush in water, and then here I think I'm gonna end it. Okay, and as you could see, I'm just kind of doing, every time I move my brush, I'm dabbing it in the water pretty much and picking up more paint and trying to create a lot of little lines to this plant, right? This orangey plant. Okay, I'm going to let it go all the way to the end here, because I want it to look full. I want this painting to look full, but I don't want to go all the way to the edge. I like that dark blue showing a little bit, you know? So I'm not gonna, it's totally up to you if you want to go all the way, but I'm not going to. This is, again, this is the fun part, because you can change it up and place your, you know, plant anywhere you want and as big as you want, right? So have fun with this part, and we're gonna just attach, right, little ones right here, and kind of keep that same technique going all the way in. It's gonna be a lot of little details, so be patient, turn on some music, and attach them. You see how I kind of add little waves to it? Add like little waves. That creates an interesting pattern to our plant here. So it won't look too straight, you know. We want to make it look interesting, right? So, and you can go over, they can overlap, remember, make them look all unique and different. And they can kind of keep that direction going outward, but they can kind of go in a little bit as well, but mainly going outward, right? We don't want it to, this, for example, we don't want it to go this way too much. We want to more focus on letting it grow outward. So grow outward, okay, like this. Draw them and add as many as you want. And you can overlap them, but that's the key, mainly, is to have it go one direction. And as you can see, our plant's starting to shape up and look much more detailed. And so that's really it for this part, you know. So I'm going to spend some time doing this, okay? All right, you could see I got a sketch of this plant using one color and some water. And now we're gonna kind of add a little more details to it with this orange, darker orange. And then we're gonna go over some of these and create some of them, give it some orange to it. Especially on the bigger ones. Just a quick glaze. Real quick. Randomly go over. We might actually need to mix a darker color. Probably we're gonna add a darker red and orange to this because I want to make some of these areas stand out even more. So I'm gonna quickly sketch that in there, and then we'll make another shade real quick. especially in here, randomly. Dab my brush in the water and continue. Okay. So I added orange and crimson red. I'm going to take part of this color, okay, mix it in with this. I want a darker shade actually. All right, so I'm going to mix it and show you what I get. It's going to be more on a dark orange leaning towards red, but we still want it to be orangey. And I'll show you how to create like a cool, kind of like what we did with the blue here with water, right? So something like this and detail brush, and I'll show you how to make it even more like 3D, because right now it's looking flat, but that's okay because we're gonna go over. So I'm gonna go over some of these with this color, darker color, right? We want to create variety. So I'm gonna spend some time going over, not just using one side of the, so maybe on the left side because the light is hitting from the top. Just go over on the left side of these. It doesn't have to be perfect. Real quick with water and this dark color we have mixed, we're gonna create a little more color to our plant. Okay, so I'll spend some time doing this randomly, not everywhere, not as much as we did with the first color, but we want a hint of this darker shade, okay? I'm going to create and add some color to it. I'm going to use my number 4 brush, dab it in the water, tap it on the paper towel, use the darkest color here. I'm going to darken one more area with a little bit of water and this paint. I want to darken this, make this a little more dark orange, this corner right here. I'm going to blend it in with my background colors real quick and let it fade out to the top. Okay, just like this. Dab my brush slightly in the water, tap it on a paper towel, use a little bit of this color, and we'll continue. I'm going to add a glaze on some of these. Okay. Just like that. All right. I'm going to use a little bit of black straight out of the tube. And I'm going to dab it in the water and take part of the black just a little bit. You see it has water in it. We're going to transparently make this a little darker red in here, lightly, not too much. We don't want to add too much black. This is like the shadow, you know, from the light, from, you know, so that it creates variety of, gives it more depth to our plant. I want to create that just on the bottom here mainly. Maybe on some areas in here, but that's good right there. And now I'm gonna use medium yellow. I want to really brighten this plant. And I'm gonna use my number 8 brush, dab it in the water all the way, and then tap it on a paper towel, use medium yellow, and with water, we're gonna add that glaze. Not too much yellow, but a little bit. So make sure you have water on your brush, but not too much, okay? Something like this. And a little glaze of yellow on some of these. So real quick, to create color, to create your plant glowing maybe from the light. So I'm just randomly adding it on some of these, mainly on top here. Here I want to add a little bit of a different tone, but something like this, you could see it adds a little bit of color, not too much. We don't want too much. If you added too much, use more water to kind of make it more smooth. Okay, There you go. And then we're gonna add a little bit of, same technique, a little bit of, let's just do ultramarine blue. And dab it in the water. Clean our brush first, okay? And then we're gonna tap it on the paper towel, and then same technique with water and a little bit of this ultramarine blue and water. We're gonna add it on this side right in here because I want this to be faded into blue, into the darker blue here, and go over everything. Okay, it's like a shadow from the light. Okay, so a little more of this blue. You see how nice that looks? And add a glaze of that blue onto these plants. And it's okay if you get the background because the background is dark blue anyway. It's just going to be all faded anyway. And then a little bit here, and that's good enough. All right, so you see we created like some transition from light blue to like the yellow because of the light hitting this, maybe, so it gives it a little more depth. Okay, so you can spend as much time as you want on this, detailing it, adding shadows, and like for example, like we did, the final thing I'll do is add a lighter color, add my probably a little bit of white and a touch of yellow, okay? And I'm going to kind of what we did to this one on top. You see we added the lighter ones on top because of the light hitting it. So I'm gonna, right on these edges, I'm going to brighten some of these, all right? Not too much in the middle, but mainly right here, fading it from light to going into this color that we just added, okay? I'm gonna spend some time doing that. So this is what I got. You could see it's a lot lighter than the first tone, right? We're gonna use this with a detail brush and a little bit of water and paint, doing the same technique, but only on the top of these. We're gonna brighten it and go over, maybe use a little bit less water so it can stand out a little more. And then you can kind of fade it out, okay? Fade it out. Don't go all the way in, but we want to brighten because of the light hitting some of these, okay? That'll make it really look, make your plant stand out even more. So keep that in mind. Maybe you don't have to do it to all of them, skip some, you know. But you could start to see already it's looking more brighter on top because we're adding this beautiful highlight. Okay, so I'm going in a little bit, but not too much. Okay, so I'm going to spend time doing this, going back and forth, maybe using a little bit less water so it won't be transparent. I want it to be bright from the light. So I'm using less water, but if I need to a little bit, I'll use a little bit so it can run smooth. But you could see what I'm doing, making it brighter on these plants right in here, and then you can bring it in a little bit. You see what it does? Makes it look more 3D. That's what we want. We don't want it to look flat. That's why these little details matter, you know. Sometimes, like, I step back and I'm thinking so hard on a painting, and I look, man, what am I missing? What is looking off, you know? But then I just add that one little detail and it makes such a big difference. It's pretty cool to see, you know, how paintings can do that, how like one little thing can really fix everything. So sometimes maybe, you know, I overthink a lot, but once you learn the shadows and the way the light hits, and kind of learn to create, you know, your transitional shades from light to dark and the way the light hits, you'll start to really, you know, it'll start to be a lot of fun because you can really create your own images and, you know, and just create some beautiful pieces. But here it is. I'm going to spend a little bit more time, like I said, on this, and then we'll continue to our next flower. All right, so we can always come back to these later. Let's continue adding details here. And I'm going to add some far away ones real quick, and I'm going to create a shade. I added a touch of phthalo blue, very small amount, and a little bit of white. I'm going to mix those, and it's just going to be a bluish, light bluish color. And we're going to use that because this blue color will be darker blue because it's further away, right? We want to make it like these, this plant, some plants that are far away to create depth. So a little bit of blue like this, all right, will do. And then I'm going to clean my palette knife and use my detail brush, dab it in the water. Same technique, same idea. Swirl your brush. And then we're going to just randomly add some little faraway plants. Maybe these plants are, you know, going this direction. Randomly, there's no correct way of doing this, just make it all random. Okay, so maybe some of them were going down like this. Okay. As you can see, I'm not focused on making it perfect, just making it wavy and adding that glaze. Maybe some will be on this side as well. Randomly far away. And then dab my brush in the water, use a little bit of that blue again, and continue randomly adding shapes of plants. And this is like the background. Some of this is going to be covered by the plants that we add here, but we just want to add a little bit of detail here, you know. A little bit of far away detail that you probably won't see once we start adding our other plants. But real quick, why not? You know, every little detail counts. So just a quick sketch here, and then I'm going to call it good. As I get closer, maybe make some bigger ones here for fun. Randomly, you know. All right, that's good enough for now. We can always come back to this part later, but that's good. Now I'm going to clean my brush, and now what I'm going to do is use my number 8 brush real quick, and remember that black we added straight out of the tube. Let's use a little bit of this black, okay, and we're just going to go over some of these where the shadows are with water and this black, okay. So as you can see, it's creating a little bit of the darker shadows in our water. Okay. And you can make it look rough, why not? But I don't want it to go too far because we want to look faded from the light, right? We just want to add a little bit of that glaze dark glaze in here as we get closer. Add a little more dark in here. Okay, a little more black in here. And then, you know, we're going to work on adding more details as we go this way, but for now, let's focus here. So I added real quick a glaze of black all over randomly. Okay, like I said, we'll continue adding the details later, but for now, that's good. All right, so we're gonna let this dry, but right now I'm going to mix some colors to create one of our final biggest details of our plants, and then we're gonna add all the little details right here, and then the fish will be the last thing. Okay, this is gonna be 2 shades, very simple, thumb amount of white, a touch of crimson red, and then a little bit less white, more crimson red, and a touch of ultramarine blue. I wanna mix these colors and show you what I get. All right, so we got a light pink and then a darker pink here. So we're going to use our flat brush this time, and we're going to sketch out very gently with water. Always dab your brush in the water, and then gently we're going to sketch out our, let's use the dark color first. So with water, and then I make the tip, you know, nice and sharp right there. And then we're going to kind of sketch it out. And this is totally up to you how much you want to add. So I'm going to probably, you know, have it kind of move this way, like it's going like this, okay? So our first one's going to be somewhere right here, okay? Second one's going to be in here. Going in, and I'm gently pressing. Don't press too hard. We don't want it to be too thick. We want these to be skinny, and maybe this one overlaps like this. Okay. So we're going to add a lot of these. Gonna have some bent. let's bring it down all the way to the bottom. Okay, a little more here. All right, so we kind of got the quick sketch of these, and then we're going to use the same technique with the white, and you could also use a detail brush if you want, but I'm barely pressing, so I'm going to go over some of them and add a little bit of color. Light pink color. Got my brush in water. A little bit of that darker pink. Okay, something like this. Now I'm going to clean my flat brush and then use a detail brush. So I just kind of cleaned it real quick and put it flat on the paper towel so that you don't want to keep these brushes in the water jar, because you won't get, over time your tip will be ruined. So that's why I only keep my number 8 and number 4 mainly in the water. Sometimes my blending brushes, but usually you don't want to keep your blending brushes in the water too long. I usually try to clean them out, but it's fine to have number 8 and number 4 in there, okay? So, and then also I don't put my detail brush in the water as well. I usually just wash it if I'm done using it and put it flat on the paper towel. So I'm going to dab my brush in the water, and we're going to continue, go back and kind of sketch out and start to make our plants a little thicker and detailed, okay? So I'm going to start from this side and work my way upwards, okay? So I want them to look a little more fluffy and thicker. So I'm going to, but before I do, because I didn't finish the background here, okay? We want to work from furthest to closest. We got the sketch down. Let's actually, I'm going to clean my brush real quick, and let's quickly add some details here. And I'm going to add sap green straight out of the tube, and then we're going to add some, let's add some raw sienna, some medium yellow, straight out of the tube. Don't worry about making it, and then Viridian. And then we're gonna quickly use our number 8 brush, right? This is what I have. And I'm going to use, let's use this orange we have left. I don't want the paint to go to waste. And then I'm gonna use a little bit of this green, maybe mixed with yellow. Okay, real quick, randomly. And we're just gonna add some details in here. Maybe there's some interesting high, reflections and plants that we don't see here. We're gonna create some color. Okay. And then I'm going to fade it out. Okay, a little more of that yellow and green. And then let's add a little bit of that green in here. Some color. Not too much, but we want a little bit of more color in here. And then we're going to fade it out. And now I'm going to use this dark orange, clean my brush, randomly use this dark orange, maybe part of this with yellow, mix it and see what I get. And let's just add a little bit of that in here, dab it and add some color in here. Use more of the Rossiana in yellow. Let's dab, and I know I'm going over some of these, but it's okay. We're gonna add more. Okay, and I'm going to use red, straight out of the tube. Red and orange, and I know I'm just kind of randomly doing this because the ground is going to be just a bunch of details, and let's use a little bit of this white. And I'm not cleaning my brush. I'm working really, rough, real quick, trying to create some color. Okay, something like this. Use more red. Add some color in here. Okay. Gonna fade out in there with red. Okay, use a little bit of orange and red again, randomly mix those two. Let's add some red in here. Maybe there's something in here. We're gonna fade it out. Use red, straight out of the tube. Randomly dab some color in here. And then I'm going to clean my brush completely. Clean it, dab it on the paper towel. Let's use a little bit of this light color we have mixed with Viridian. Light color we have left with Viridian, and we're going to go over some of these. Maybe these are little rocks showing through, right? Who knows? But I'm going to add a few little highlights and details with Viridian and this light color. Maybe use a little blue with it, why not? And then I'm just going to gently press and dab and create little details. Okay. So more white, or this color, lighter color, and let's add some details, highlights in here. Maybe this rock, add some highlights in here that we can barely see. Okay, randomly, all these little details will make your painting look more interesting, right? So add more light. Randomly adding some brighter colors. Okay, I'm going to clean my brush, and I'd use some yellow straight out of the tube, and I'm going to add a little glaze of yellow right in here. I want this interesting green glow happening on some of these. Maybe in here as well. Okay. And then with a detail brush, you can go over. I'm going to squeeze some white straight out of the tube. White, and let's, with just the white, let's add, actually let's mix the white with a little bit of this orange that we have left. Okay, use just a teeny bit of this orange, mix it with white, so it won't be just white straight out of the tube, it will have some color. Okay, so something like this. It doesn't have to be exactly like mine. You could see I'm working really rough and quickly, just randomly adding whatever color just to create some colors and shapes, you know, and interesting reflections of color on our ground here. So I'm going to also add a little bit of this dark pink, maybe mix it with this red again. I'm going to add a little more pink right in here to create some variety of different plants and color, right? A little bit of that in here. And then I'm going to fade it out. Use orange a little bit, more orange. Let's add some in here. I'm going to take part of this color we just mixed and make some of this a little bit brighter in here. Okay. All right, so with the detail brush and this bright color we have mixed, I'm going to swirl and add some detail. And maybe there's some little branches and things that are growing here. So I'm going to kind of go over randomly and, you know, kind of what we did with the blue, right? Randomly with water and that light color. Maybe some of them are flat here. Very little ones, you know, that you can barely see. And I'm just going to randomly create some details to my ground here. Some will have a little, maybe, you know, more of a interesting shape. Okay, so I'm going to continue adding a little bit more detail here. Okay, and then in here as well. Dab my brush in the water, and we're just going to create a little more details in around our colors we added. So maybe there's some little, you can add like little circles, and as you get closer you see more of the details maybe on some of these. Maybe add little dots here. These little flowers, who knows? Maybe they're growing on the rocks. Right? A little bit in here, randomly. Dab my brush in the water. Add a little more lines to give variety. And then here I'm going to add a little highlight. Maybe this is like a bright rock in here, buried. And then this one as well, you see. Just add that nice, bright glow. Colorful rock. Okay, and then I'm going to go over dab my brush in the water and continue using that color, and I'm going to try to continue and add all the details. Maybe there's a little shapes here that we don't see. You could see once you have your random sketches happening, right, you can start to add all the beautiful little highlights and details from the light hitting the rocks and plants, things like that. We're going to go over our plant, one of our final plants here in a bit, but I'm going to continue adding some details to our background, rocks and little flowers growing on the rocks, and so a little more highlights in here. Maybe it's going up a little bit. And then fading out. And you can add as much little details as you want to these. This a little brighter in here. Some little faded rocks in here. Maybe there's something bright in here. I'm going to clean my brush, pick up my number 4, take a step back and see if I need to correct stuff. For example, here I want to make this a little more green. So I'm going to add a little more glaze of green in here and in here. Make it bright. Maybe use a little bit of black. I'm going to get some black out of the tube. Straight out of the tube. And let's use phthalo blue straight out of the tube. And have fun with this, you know, like there's no, and then with number 4, there's no like correct way of doing this. This is totally like I'm winging it and kind of like creating my own shapes and shadows and let it naturally happen. I wasn't even planning to draw stuff like this in here, but it happened naturally and it looks pretty cool, so I'll leave it. So with the black, I'm going to create a few little details. Okay. Not too much because I like the way it looks already. I don't want to overdo it. And then clean my brush. Use that phthalo blue, and I'm going to add more blue right in here. Darker blue. A little glaze of that coming in. Okay. Randomly adding some color. Use a little bit of the lighter orange we have mixed. Add a little more brighter areas. Take a step back if you need to. Maybe a little more rocks. Okay, so far so good. I'm liking it. Use a little bit of that color in here. Randomly add some in here. You could see I'm just going with the flow and creating my own shape. So spend some time, you know, doing that. And now I'm going to use a little bit of black and maybe with blue, mix it together. With water, we're going to add some little darker shadows from some of these plants that we've added. See right there? That will make it look, it'll make your plants stand out a little more. Okay, so that will be one of the final things we do to our background rocks here, is add our little details, shadows. Maybe not everywhere, but some areas. Yeah, more brush in the water, continue. And now with the black and number 4 brush, we're going to add a little darker shadow right underneath here. I'm going to fade it out. Okay, just like that. And then here we're going to continue that darker shadow. Maybe a little bit of darker shadow in here from this plant. Okay. Some darker shadows in here. Kind of making this a little more dimmer. Okay, a little bit of the darker shadows going inside here. All right, that's good right there. All right, as you can see, it's a lot of color and random things like rocks and little flowers that you can barely see underwater, you know. So something like this, play with it, have fun. You can add as much color and detail as you want, but make sure to create, basically the point is to create from further distance to fading it to more colorful as you get closer, right? So you can see it's more bluish here, faded blue, because it's further out in the distance, and then it comes to more brighter colors. Something like this, if you do this, you'll be good to go. Okay, so before I add any more detail here, I'm going to continue with these these plants here. So let's go back with our detail brush and this bright pink color, and it's going to be a repetitive thing, and we're just going to add more detail and make it look a little thicker and go around and make these stand out a little bit from both sides. So I'm going to randomly, and they don't need to be all perfectly straight, you can make them a little wavy if you want. So randomly go over and make a little loop. Okay, dab my brush in the water and like that, something like this. Okay, so I'm going to do that to all my little plants that I added here. Some of them you have to go over again. And we're going to fill in the inside with this hot pink that we've mixed. We're going to add that like that, okay? Once we're done adding all our details. Just so you get an idea. You want the lights you want it to be light from both sides. Okay, so that's the plan, and let's start detailing all of our, for example, this one. Randomly go over, make a loop, dab my brush in the water, you continue using this. I'm going to make them a little thicker, rounder. Our little plants here. Okay, so another one right in here. Dab my brush in the water. This could look, these plants could look rough on the edges, so it doesn't have to be more smooth like these. You can see I'm not trying to make it perfect, I'm making them look rough. Okay, so I'm going to spend some time going over all these with going around them and just, you know, detailing them a little bit. And then I'm going to go back and I'll show you the next part, which we'll use this hot pink. And now with the hot pink, we're going to go over the middle and add a little bit of pink too. You can dab it and skip some. Overlap some. Totally up to you. But we want to create these pink. So I'm going to spend some time filling in the pink on all of these. Okay, it's looking a little rough right now, but that's okay. We're going to create some shadows and detail it a little more. So I added crimson red and ultramarine blue straight out of the tube. We're going to use number 8 and some water, number 8 brush and some water. And we're going to go over the bottom of these. And with this darker red, we're just going to try to create a little bit of a darker shade here on the bottom. Okay, a little more in here. Kind of go over some of them. Okay, with that red. Okay, and once you're done adding a little bit here, we're going to clean our brush. Okay, I'm going to clean it and then do the same thing, but with ultramarine blue. We're going to add straight out of the tube water and ultramarine blue. We're going to add a little glaze on top here on these ones. Go over them. Okay, go over them real quick. Some of these further away. With water, we're just adding a little bit of highlights and shadows and details, kind of like what we did with these other ones. I'm gonna make them look colorful and detailed. Create 3D. Make them look a little more 3D. Add a little bit on the bottom here, a little bit of that blue on the bottom, mix it with red, Okay, a little more. Okay, just gonna go over like this. Okay. And now we got a rough sketch, as you could see, of these plants here, right? Now I'm going to spend a little bit more time with my detail brush and the light pink, and this time I'm going to spend, this is going to take a longer time, but I want to make them look a little more prettier and give it a little more detail, right? So what I'm going to do is basically I'm going to go over and add little dots and kind of on both sides. Like this, okay? Make them look a little more detailed. You can add some in the middle. Very tiny ones. Okay, and then, you know, as you go down, we'll try to fade it out. Basically, I'm going to spend some time doing that, okay? On all these little details. Some of them will overlap the other ones, some of them you have to skip. So this one's going to go overlap some of these ones. So just give some variety options. I'll show you what I got after I'm done. What I did, okay? So real quick from the light, I'm going to create little details to our plants. And you can make them as big as you want, totally up to you. I just want to make them look a little more interesting. Because right now they look flat and plain. Okay. So this is another repetitive process. So spend some time, turn on some music, and have fun. Alright, as you could see, it took a little bit of time adding these little details and making them look a little thicker to my plants here. And then I just went over some of them. You could see some of them I skipped through. You know, you want to create variety, you know, like right here, and then went under, you know, it makes it look more 3D that way. So make sure you do that, and it don't, so that you won't overlap all of them, you know, and make it just look like they're just right in front of you. You want to give variety, okay? So overlap some of them, okay? You don't have to do it a lot. I did like 5 of them right here, overlapped 5, and that looks already, gives it depth. And then what I did was, after I added that, I added a glaze of that ultramarine blue, like we did earlier. And also I went over and kind of added a little bit of red to darken some of these. Just a few. So that's what I did. Basically, it's totally up to you how much detail you want to add to your plants, but this is basically how I am able to create this. And now for the final details, we're going to work on adding some fish in the background so that it'll complete the painting, because this section is busy, right? We want to make a little bit of the water up here also to balance the image. So let's add a few colorful fish. All right, so this is what I added. Basically, a little bit of white and a touch of phthalo blue right there, and then straight out of the tube, phthalo blue right here, and then a little less white, sap green, more yellow, medium yellow, and straight out of the tube on top, medium yellow. We're going to play with these colors. And then I added ultramarine blue, a little touch of white, and black, more black. This is going to be our darkest color. We're going to start with this shade. These are a couple different colors. It's going to be kind of greenish and yellow, and then light blue. We're going to add some color to our fish. So I'm going to mix these colors and show you what I get. Okay, so this is what I got. You could see a light blue and then kind of light green color, and then just a dark grayish blue color right here. So something like this will work. We're going to play with these colors and create some of the little fish with our detail brush. Let's start with the blue, light blues, and swirl your brush, kind of like what we did with the plants and all the details, with water, a little bit of water, swirl, and create a fine tip on your brush, right? And then we're going to sketch out our fish. So let's start from this side and work our way this way, and then we're gonna go down and work a little bit, adding some fish on the bottom as well. So from here, I'm going to start sketching out the shapes of my fish. So it's totally up to you how big you want your fish to be. So just keep that in mind. Okay, and then we're gonna just add a little bit of highlight right here. Okay, we're gonna play with this light blue, this dark blue that we have mixed. We're gonna add some light blue mixed with this light color, okay? I'm gonna play with these colors to create a transitional shade from this light going to this. So I'm using phthalo blue straight out of the tube, and I'm kind of blending it in randomly. Okay, so I'm gonna use a little more lighter color and create a little transition. Okay, a little bit of phthalo blue. Darken some of these. Use a little bit of that dark gray color we've mixed, and let's add some darker shadows on top. You could see a little bit of highlight. We don't want too much. We want just a hint of color, a little glare on our fish. We don't want to make the fish stand out too much, right? So keep that in mind, make sure. So I'm going to clean my brush, use a little bit of the phthalo blue and that light blue, mix them together, create a little bit of a in-between shade, and add a little fin here. Okay, so I'm going to use a little more of the light blue that we have mixed, and I'm going to add a little bit brighter in here. And on the bottom. Okay, I want to make it look sharp. Okay, clean my brush. Use that darkest color that we have mixed and create a little shadow on where his eye is. Okay. So we got our first shape of our fish. There you go. So you could see a quick little fish. So I'm gonna create a few of those. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix more of this light blue Let's create another one, maybe right on top. There's another one like it. And you can make them big, you can make them small, totally up to you. So as you can see, I'm going to make it a little smaller. And then so I'm adding that phthalo blue and the light, and I'm going to blend those in right here where the belly is and create a transition. Okay, use that darkest color we have mixed and then create a little shadow on his back. Not too much. We want it to look faded. Okay, so something like that. I'm going to clean my brush and then go back to my light blue color again with water. Try to correct some of these. Add a little fin. Highlights from the light. Alright, you could see I'm barely adding that. I'm not trying to make it pop out too much. We want to look faded. Make it look faded. Okay, let's continue the same technique, light blue with water. And let's add a little one in here, a little small. Maybe it's the same type of fish, but it's a little bit of a further away. So I'm going to make it small. Okay, go back to that dark phthalo blue, straight out of the tube, and we're just going to blend that in. Create a fade. There you go. You could see I'm not even going to add the black. I'm just going to leave it like that. You see how it's like faded, but so it's not standing out too much because it's further back. So we want to add maybe a few more of the darker ones. So I added phthalo blue and the light blue that we have mixed. So I'm adding phthalo blue now, making it darker. So it could be just a hint, right? Like that. So now I'm going to go with the darker color and create a couple dark shadows of fish. Make it dark blue right here. Maybe it's far away. Little darker ones. I'm going to add light blue now. The light blue, go back to that, and then I'm going to create some far away little ones. Add a little bit of a darker blue. You could see it, they're all faded. We don't want to make them and go different directions, you know. Some can be swimming up, some can be swimming down. And really it's totally up to you. Basically make a hint. We want them to look like they're far away. Okay, so let's go to the darkest color again. I'm going to add a few more darker ones. Maybe these are skinny fish swimming. Long skinny fish, who knows? Add a little bit of light blue. Want to create a little highlight on these. Okay. Add a little bit of light blue. Let's continue. I want to add another light blue one, maybe similar type of fish right in here. Okay, dab my brush in water, mix the light blue with the phthalo blue straight out of the tube, add phthalo blue on top, and then add a little bit of that lighter blue and create a transition. A little more of that phthalo blue. Let's add the darkest color to create some shadows on the fish. Okay, clean my brush. And then add the lightest blue color. We're still working with this, and then final detail. Add a little highlight to the fish from the light. Okay. Let's add light blue, and let's add another one right in here. Maybe this one's a smaller one. light blue and phthalo blue, and we're just going to add that in here randomly, and then go to the light blue again and kind of blend it in. Same technique, same idea. And then we could use that darkest color to create a little bit of the shadows from this fish. Okay, something like that. Clean the brush, go to the light blue again, and create your final outliner. Create a nice highlight from the light. Okay. I'm going to use phthalo blue and then darken this area here. There you go. All right, so a couple more little ones. Maybe they're you don't want an all direction looking that way. Maybe some of them are swimming towards you. So I'm going to create like a round. Make this one look a little more rounder, different shape. Maybe it's swimming a little bit on a different direction. Use phthalo blue on top, and then light blue on the bottom. Blend those in. I'm not going to use my dark color because it's on the lighter side, so we don't need to make it too dark. Only add the darks when you're going into the dark to create that shadow, but we want these fish to look like they're far away. So since we're going to the light area right here, the background, we're making it look a little, you know, hint of them. So maybe this one is facing us, swimming towards us. So light blue. Okay. So when you create a variety of fish, some swimming towards you, a little more tail maybe showing through the back a little bit. Maybe it just turned towards us. Dab my brush in water, use phthalo blue straight out of the tube. Let's add a little color. You see how it pops up without even using the dark color? Okay, so I'm going to dab my brush in the water and use that and clean it on the paper towel, and use the light blue color to kind of blend these colors together lightly. So I don't want too much. I want that dark blue still there, but a hint of it. Okay, something like that. So it looks like it's kind of swimming towards us or something, right? Maybe we can make the nose a little bit more sharper. Adding phthalo blue. Okay. So that's basically how I create my fish. Okay. Maybe there's another one behind right here, swimming. It's turning a little more. So you get to see a little bit of its tail. I'm going to use a little phthalo blue, not too much. Gently blend those colors in. Maybe make this one a little more lighter because it's further away. Something like this, okay? So let's add a little bit of the darkest color, and we're going to add some dark ones right in here. Maybe this one is swimming up and make a big one, big fish. Dab my brush in the water, and we're going to create some big fish. Okay, something like this. And I'm gonna use a little bit of the light blue right here on the bottom, not too much. And then we're gonna go back to the gray, and we're just gonna try to blend that a little bit in. We want this fish to be dark. So I'm going to continue adding that dark on top. Okay, dab my brush in the water lightly. And there you go. A little interesting fish. I'm gonna make this a little sharper. Okay, so I'm gonna go do the same thing. Maybe this fish is kind of swimming towards us, so I'm gonna make it look kind of like what we did here. Make it look more round here. And then faded like that, okay? And then add that dark color. Okay, so this takes patience and time to go back and forth. So I'm dabbing my brush in water so it can run smoothly. It's almost like watercolor painting with a dark color. And then we're gonna add a little bit of that light blue on the bottom here, just a little bit. Dab my brush in water, clean it, use the dark color again, and we're just gonna blend it in quickly. Okay, maybe it's like swimming towards us a little bit. We don't know. Add a little bit of eyes maybe. Maybe there's an eye right here and an eye right here. Who knows? Light blue. Very small, like a very small hint. You almost can't see it. Okay, so I'm gonna add a few more. I'm gonna add this tail a little bit bigger here on the back. It's like so that you could see that it's moving towards us. I'm going to use a little bit of the same color gray, continue adding that, and I'm going to add a few small ones. Maybe there's one more small one in here. Maybe it's a different type of fish. With the pointy nose. Faded, some faded ones in the back, you know, with water. Okay, maybe another faded one right in here with water. And that dark color, just a hint of it. You could see the shape of it, but barely. It's because it's far away, right? So you can spend some time, maybe another one. Okay, you see some faded ones. They're further away ones. Let's add one more dark one. A couple more maybe. A couple more right in here. I'm gonna add right in between. Maybe a couple skinny ones. Down my brush in the water. Maybe the tail is long. Maybe this fish has a tall, long tail. Make the beak a little more straighter. few details here. To the fish. Light blue. Let's add a little bit of details here. Okay, clean my brush. Go back to the gray and blend it in a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to add a few more of these, maybe one more here and a couple more, doing the same thing with this blue and gray, dark gray we've mixed, and then we're going to do a couple yellow ones on the bottom and around here. I'll show you. Alright, so I added all the fish I wanted on top. I'm coming down right here. I want to add some yellow ones. I also, for fun, added dark blue, kind of similar technique that we did to these, but a little longer and less detailed, as you could see. And I did a faded, maybe there's one that is bigger like this growing on the side, you know, just to balance the painting and make it look interesting. So I added that. You don't need to do that, but you can. So with water and the same technique, we're going to use this green one now with the yellow. Okay, we have the yellow here, and we're going to start to sketch out our bright fish. So first I'm going to add one right in here, one that is kind of going down, and this one is going to be more round and more curvy. Okay, this one is going to be a little more round and curvy. Alright, and then we're going to just detail, make the beak a little sharp, and then create a little detail right here, and then just kind of fill it in. And then you can use a little bit of the blue, phthalo blue, to kind of blend it in a little bit to create that transition from this bright green to a little bit of a faded green here. Okay, like that. Basically, that's what I'm going to do, create some bright fish. I'm going to clean my brush and then use yellow straight out of the tube, and I want to add a little color to the top right here. Make my fish bright. Bright, bright, bright. Okay, to create some variety. So now I'm going to add the same type of fish. Maybe it's kind of swimming down. Maybe this one's a little bigger. Try to keep it similar type fish, but it doesn't matter. You can create your own types of fish and just have fun with this. Okay, so you could see I first sketch out my fish, the shape of it, and then I'm going to add that green on top, bright green, because that's where the light is hitting the fish. And as I go down, I'm going to add that phthalo blue straight out of the tube on the bottom, right here. Fill it in. Okay, and then add a little bit of yellow on top. There you go. A little more brighter on top here. Okay. There you go. We got two fishes like that. Now I'm going to continue adding more little ones. Maybe there's a little one that it's far further away, but it's kind of, you can barely see it. It's maybe turning or something, you know. just little ones far away. Create a few of them. This one's going down even deeper. So let's make it go down like this. And as you go down, we can make it less bright. Okay, so with water, I'm gonna get that green, and then I'm gonna fade it out to this, to mix it with phthalo blue right here, and kind of fade it out, blend it in, because water helps to kind of blend everything in right here, as you could see. So we got another fish there. And so I'm gonna add a few little ones, maybe some blue ones, you know, to continue adding some variety. And then once I'm done, this is basically the last part of the process of this painting. Once I'm done, I like to step back and see if I need to correct something or add more detail to something. You know, this is the fun part. You can now work on going back and really making things look nice. Okay, so I'm gonna finish up with fishes, doing the same technique. Okay, and adding some blue ones, some more of the green yellowish ones here, just a few more, and then we're gonna finalize this piece. All right, so I added all my fish where I want it to be, and what I also did was use a detail brush and a little bit of white, and I added a little bubbles, as you could see, little dots of white. Not everywhere, just a few little ones, okay? And you don't want to overdo it, so I just added a few, as you could see. The last step and final thing we're gonna do to this painting is add a little glow of light from the top right here, going down, like kind of not straight down, but kind of sideways, you know, and kind of going like this way, straight, and this way, okay? So with your number 8 brush and water, dab it in the water, and titanium white, we're gonna use a little bit of white, not too much, okay? Just a little bit of white. Blend it in your brush, because your brush has some water, right? And with water and a little bit of that white, we're just going to create a few areas of light. Try to make it kind of straight. And faded sideways, and then here I'm gonna add a little bit. And this is, I'm not adding too much. As you can see, it's it's a hint. It's more water than paint. Just keep that in mind. Okay? Just add a few and then dab my brush lightly in the water, tap it on a paper towel. Use a little bit of white again. Same technique, same idea. And we're gonna add another kind of going a little bit, starting to move this way. This one's angled a little more. Okay. And then maybe in here a little bit. And in here, okay? Basically that's it. You could see a very hint. Once it dries, it's going to be even more dimmer. It's not going to stand out as much, but we want a little bit of that light coming through from the sun, okay? You don't want to add too much. And you don't have to do this. Your painting could be fine as it is, but I wanted to add a little bit of that glow. I'm going to add a little more white right in here on top. A little more white and water. Make it this area a little thicker right in here. Add a little more white and add it right in here as well. Okay, there you go. Okay, I'll be done for today. You can come back and work on your details now. Take a step back and hang it on the wall and see if you want to add anything extra to it or correct something. And with acrylics, it's very easy to correct. Mix some color and paint on top, and change things and whatever you want to do. Okay, so have fun with this. I hope you enjoyed and learned a lot from this tutorial. Thank you for being here. See you guys next time. Take care and God bless.